What if I told you that a penny most people ignore could actually be worth far more than 1 cent, and chances are it has passed through thousands of hands without anyone realizing it? The coin we're talking about is the 2009 D. Lincoln penny, a modern coin with a story that makes collectors stop and take a second look. At first glance, it seems ordinary. Just another penny. Just another coin sitting in a jar, buried in a drawer, or forgotten in a piggy bank. But the truth is much more interesting. To understand why this coin matters, we have to go back to 2009. That year marked the 200th birthday of Abraham Lincoln and the 100th anniversary of the Lincoln cent itself. The United States Mint wanted to celebrate in a big way. Instead of producing just one design, they released 4 different reverse designs throughout the year. Each design represented a different stage of Lincoln's life. That instantly made 2009 one of the most fascinating years in Lincoln cent history. Now here's where things get interesting. The D Mint mark means this coin was struck at the Denver Mint. Millions were produced, but collectors quickly noticed something unusual. People weren't saving pennies like previous generations did. Many of these coins entered circulation and disappeared into everyday commerce. They were spent, scratched, damaged, and forgotten. As years passed, finding high-quality examples became harder than many expected. And in coin collecting, condition is everything. A worn penny might only be worth face value, but a pristine example can be a completely different story. Imagine 2 identical 2009 D. Lincoln pennies. One spent years bouncing around in pockets and cash registers. The other was carefully preserved from the day it left the mint. The difference in value can be shocking. Collectors compete fiercely for coins with strong luster, sharp details, and virtually no marks. The higher the grade, the higher the potential value. Some certified high-grade examples have sold for amounts that would surprise anyone who thinks pennies are worthless. But there's another twist. Remember those 4 different designs? Each tells part of Lincoln's incredible journey. One shows his birth and early childhood in Kentucky. Another represents his formative years in Indiana. A third highlights his professional life in Illinois. The fourth depicts the presidency in Washington, D.C. Many collectors wanted complete sets. That increased demand for well-preserved examples from both Philadelphia and Denver. Suddenly, these weren't just pennies. They became pieces of American history. Now let's talk about errors, because this is where treasure hunters get excited. Most 2009 D. Lincoln pennies are perfectly normal. But every now and then, a mistake slips through the minting process. And when it does, collectors pay attention. Off-center strikes.
Die Cracks. Misaligned dies.
Double strikes. These types of errors can transform an ordinary coin into something much more valuable. Some error coins sell for tens, hundreds, or even thousands of dollars depending on the severity and rarity of the mistake. That's why experienced collectors inspect every coin carefully. A tiny detail can make an enormous difference. And here's the crazy part. Many people spend error coins without ever noticing them. Imagine carrying a valuable error penny in your pocket and using it to buy a snack. It happens more often than you'd think. That's why treasure hunters search through rolls of pennies from banks. They know valuable discoveries can still be hiding in plain sight. One collector shared a story about searching through thousands of pennies with almost no luck. Night after night, nothing special appeared. Then one evening, buried among common coins, a remarkable piece surfaced. A beautiful high-grade 2009 Lincoln cent. The kind most people would never notice. But collectors immediately understood its significance. That single find made all the searching worthwhile. Stories like that keep people coming back. Because every roll holds possibility. Every handful of change contains mystery. And every penny has a chance to be something special. The 2009 D. Lincoln penny also represents a unique moment in American coinage. For 1 year only, these special commemorative reverse designs were produced. Then they were gone. Future Lincoln cents moved on to different designs. That limited production window created a permanent place for these coins in collecting history. Whenever collectors build Lincoln cent collections, the 2009 series stands out. It's different, it's memorable, and it tells a story few other coins can match. Now let's talk numbers. A circulated 2009 D Lincoln penny is usually worth only a few cents. Nothing dramatic, nothing life-changing. But high-grade certified examples can bring significantly more. The finest known specimens have sold for hundreds of dollars. And rare error versions can command even stronger prices depending on their characteristics. That's a huge jump from 1 cent. The lesson here is simple. Never judge a coin by its face value. Collectors don't pay for what a coin says it's worth. They pay for rarity. They pay for condition. They pay for history. And they pay for demand. The 2009 D Lincoln penny checks all those boxes in the right circumstances. That makes it one of the most interesting modern pennies to search for. The next time you receive change, don't rush to spend it. Take a closer look. Check the date. Look for that tiny D mint mark. Inspect the condition. Search for unusual features. You never know what might be hiding in plain sight. After all, some of the best discoveries in coin collecting don't come from treasure chests or buried vaults. They come from ordinary pockets, ordinary cash registers, and ordinary pennies that most people overlook. So now I'm curious. Have you ever checked your pocket change and found a coin that looked unusual? Or could there be a valuable 2009 D Lincoln penny hiding in your collection right now? What if I told you that a simple penny from 1936 could be sitting in an old jar right now, quietly waiting to surprise its owner with a value far greater than 1 cent? Most people never think twice about pennies. They toss them into drawers. They leave them in cup holders. They forget about them completely. But sometimes the smallest coins hide the biggest stories. And the 1936 Lincoln penny with no mint mark is one of those fascinating treasures that keeps collectors searching year after year. At first glance, it looks ordinary. A worn copper coin. A familiar portrait. Nothing that screams rare or valuable. But appearances can be deceiving. To understand why collectors care about this penny, we need to travel back to 1936. America was still fighting its way through the Great Depression. Money was tight. Jobs were scarce. Families saved every cent they could. And while the country struggled, the United States Mint continued producing millions of Lincoln pennies for everyday commerce. The Lincoln cent had already become one of America's most recognizable coins. Introduced in 1909 to honor Abraham Lincoln, it was the first regular U.S. coin to feature a real historical figure. That alone made it special. By 1936, these pennies were being used everywhere. People carried them in pockets. Children spent them on candy. Store owners counted them by the handful. Nobody imagined that decades later collectors would be examining them under magnifying glasses. Now here is where things get interesting. When collectors say a 1936 penny has no mint mark, they are referring to a coin struck in Philadelphia. Back then, Philadelphia coins typically carried no mint mark at all. Denver coins received a D. San Francisco coins received an S. But Philadelphia coins were left blank. That missing mark is actually exactly what you want to see. The Philadelphia Mint produced an enormous number of pennies in 1936. More than 300 million of them rolled off the presses. That sounds incredibly common. And honestly, it is. But survival is where the story changes. Most of those pennies entered circulation immediately. They were spent, dropped, lost, scratched, worn down over decades of use.
Millions disappeared de forever.
Others became so damaged that collectors no longer considered them desirable. Finding one today is easy. Finding a beautiful one is not. And that difference can mean everything. Imagine two people holding the exact same 1936 penny. One coin is dark, worn, and nearly smooth. The other still shows sharp details, bright surfaces, and strong lettering. One might be worth only a small amount. The other could attract serious collector attention. Condition is king in the coin world. And the better the condition, the more dramatic the value jump becomes. Collectors use grading systems to judge preservation. Even tiny differences matter. A slight scratch, a little wear on Lincoln's cheek, a weak detail in the wheat stalks on the reverse. Every detail affects value. That is why experienced collectors often spend years hunting for top-quality examples. But there is another twist. Certain 1936 pennies display fascinating minting errors. These mistakes occurred during the manufacturing process, and collectors absolutely love them. One of the most famous is the double die variety. This happens when the design is impressed onto the die more than once at slightly different angles. The result can create noticeable doubling in letters or numbers. To the average person, it might look strange. To a collector, it can look like treasure. Some double die examples command significantly higher prices than normal coins. And that possibility keeps people checking their old pennies over and over again. Then there are off-center strikes, misaligned strikes,
decrex,
and other unusual mint errors. Each tells a story from inside the mint itself. A tiny mistake made nearly a century ago can transform an ordinary penny into something collectors compete for. That is part of the excitement. You never know what might be hiding in plain sight. Now let's talk value. This is where many people get surprised. A heavily circulated 1936 no-mint Mark Lincoln penny is usually worth more than face value but not a fortune. Collectors may pay a few cents to a few dollars depending on condition. Still not bad for a coin originally worth 1 cent. But things start changing fast as quality improves. Well-preserved examples often bring much stronger prices. Uncirculated pieces with sharp details can command impressive premiums. And coins with exceptional eye appeal become even more desirable. Then we enter the territory that gets treasure hunters excited. Certified high-grade examples. These are coins professionally evaluated and preserved in remarkable condition. Some have sold for hundreds of dollars. Others have reached even higher levels depending on rarity, grade, and market demand. Add a significant error variety to the equation and the numbers can climb dramatically. That possibility is exactly why collectors never stop looking. Every old penny becomes a question. What if? What if this is the one? What if this forgotten coin turns out to be something special? That sense of discovery drives the hobby, and it has driven collectors for generations. There is something magical about holding a piece of history in your hand. Think about it. A 1936 penny has survived world-changing events. It existed before television became common, before computers, before the internet, before humans walked on the moon. It may have passed through thousands of hands. A shopkeeper, a factory worker, a soldier, a child buying candy. Each owner added another chapter to its journey, and somehow it survived. That alone makes it remarkable. Many collectors say that is the real value of old coins. Not just the money, the connection to the past, the mystery, the stories, the hunt. Of course, discovering a valuable example is a pretty exciting bonus. So if you ever come across a 1936 Lincoln penny with no mint mark, don't dismiss it too quickly. Take a closer look. Check the condition. Inspect the details. Look for unusual doubling or other mint errors. Because the difference between an ordinary coin and a collector's prize can sometimes be smaller than the width of a human hair. And that is what makes coin collecting so addictive. The next incredible find could be hiding in a forgotten drawer, an old coin jar, or a dusty family collection right now. The question is, will you be the person who discovers it? And here's what I want to know. Have you ever found an old penny that looked ordinary at first but turned out to be worth far more than expected? I'm about to tell you the story of a tiny 1-cent coin that many people have spent without a second thought, even though some examples have sold for hundreds, thousands, and in rare cases even more. The coin is the 1940s Lincoln wheat penny. At first glance, it looks ordinary. Just a simple copper penny with Abraham Lincoln on the front and 2 wheat stalks on the back. Nothing flashy. Nothing that screams treasure. But that is exactly what makes this coin so fascinating. Because hidden among millions of nearly identical pennies are a few examples that collectors desperately want to own. And some people have discovered them sitting in old jars, forgotten drawers, and dusty family collections. The story begins in 1940. The world was changing rapidly. Europe was already engulfed in war. The United States had not yet entered World War II. But uncertainty was everywhere. Meanwhile, at the San Francisco Mint, workers were striking Lincoln cents day after day. Each coin received a small S mint mark beneath the date. That tiny letter would become one of the most important clues for collectors decades later. The San Francisco Mint produced more than 112 million Lincoln cents in 1940. Now, that may sound like a huge number, and it is, which means most 1940s pennies are not rare. But here is where things get interesting. Most of those coins entered circulation immediately. They passed from hand to hand. They bought candy. They paid for newspapers. They disappeared into cash registers. And over the years, they became worn, scratched, and damaged. Finding one today is not difficult. Finding one in exceptional condition is a completely different story. That is where the real money starts. Collectors are obsessed with condition. A coin that looks ordinary to the average person can become extraordinary if it has survived with sharp details and original mint luster. Imagine two identical 1940s pennies. One is dark, worn, and heavily circulated. The other looks almost exactly as it did the day it left the mint. The difference in value can be shocking. A heavily circulated example may be worth only a few cents or a couple of dollars. But a stunning mint-state example can command hundreds or even thousands of dollars. And that is why people still search for them. But condition is only part of the story. The color of the coin matters too. When these pennies were struck, they had a bright reddish appearance. Collectors call this red. Over time, exposure to air causes copper to darken. Many coins become brown. Others develop a mix of red and brown tones. A fully red 1940s Lincoln cent is far more desirable than a brown one. And when you combine a fully red surface with an exceptionally high grade, the value can jump dramatically. Now imagine opening an old coin album and finding a brilliant red 1940s penny that has been protected for decades. That is the kind of discovery collectors dream about. But the excitement doesn't stop there. There is another reason people examine these coins so carefully.
Mint errors.
Errors are like accidents frozen in time. They happen during the manufacturing process, and collectors love them. Some 1940s pennies show repunched mint marks. This occurred when the mint mark was punched into the die more than once, slightly out of alignment. The result can create unusual doubling effects around the letter S. To an untrained eye, it may look insignificant. To a collector, it can be a thrilling variety worth far more than a normal coin. Other examples may show striking abnormalities, off-center strikes, or die-related issues that make them stand out from the crowd. These unusual pieces often attract intense collector interest because no two errors are exactly alike. Now let's talk about value. This is the part everyone waits for. A typical circulated 1940s Lincoln penny might sell for anywhere from a few cents to a few dollars depending on condition. Not life-changing money, but don't stop looking. Because the best examples tell a very different story. High-grade uncirculated coins can sell for hundreds of dollars. Exceptional red specimens certified by professional grading services have reached into the thousands. And whenever a coin combines elite condition, strong eye appeal, and rarity at the top of the grading scale, bidding wars can erupt. That is the magic of coin collecting. Sometimes the difference between a 1-cent coin and a $1,000 coin is almost invisible. One tiny detail, one preserved surface, one forgotten coin tucked away for generations. Think about that for a moment. Millions of people have handled 1940s pennies. Most never looked twice. Most spent them. Most ignored them. Yet a small number survived in remarkable condition. And those survivors became prizes. There is also something special about holding a coin from 1940. This penny existed before Pearl Harbor, before television became common, before the moon landing, before the internet. It traveled through one of the most dramatic periods in modern history. Every scratch tells a story. Every worn edge hints at decades of use. And every untouched mint-state example is like a tiny time capsule. That connection to history is one reason collectors keep coming back. They are not just buying metal. They are buying a piece of the past. And the 1940s Lincoln wheat penny captures that feeling perfectly. It is old enough to be historic, common enough to be found, yet rare enough in top condition to create genuine excitement. That's a combination collectors love. So the next time you come across an old jar of coins, a family collection, or a box hidden in the attic, don't rush past those pennies. Look closely at the dates. Look for that tiny mint mark. Check the color. Check the condition. Because what appears to be an ordinary cent could be a coin that collectors have been hunting for years. And who knows? The next valuable 1940s Lincoln wheat penny might already be sitting in someone's collection, completely unnoticed, waiting for the right person to discover its true worth. Have you ever found an old penny that turned out to be worth far more than 1 cent? Or do you think there is still a hidden treasure waiting in your collection? Before we get into this coin, let me ask you something. What if the penny hiding in your pocket right now was quietly worth hundreds, or even thousands of dollars? It sounds impossible. But for some collectors, that dream starts with a simple 1941 Lincoln penny with no mint mark. At first glance, the 1941 penny looks ordinary. Brown, small, common. The kind of coin most people would toss into a jar and forget about forever. But that is exactly why this coin is so fascinating. Hidden among millions of ordinary examples are a few pieces that have turned into collector treasures. The story begins in 1941. The world was on the edge of massive change. World War II was spreading across Europe, and America was preparing for uncertain times. During that year, the United States Mint struck huge numbers of Lincoln cents to keep up with the nation's growing economy. If your 1941 penny has no mint mark beneath the date, it means it was produced at the Philadelphia Mint. Back then, Philadelphia coins usually carried no mint mark at all. That tiny missing letter tells an important part of the coin's story. Now here comes the surprising part. The Philadelphia Mint produced more than 887 million Lincoln cents in 1941. That number sounds enormous. And it is. Because of that, most surviving examples are still worth only a small premium over face value. So why are collectors still hunting them? Because condition changes everything. Imagine two identical 1941 pennies. One spent decades bouncing around in cash registers, pockets, and vending machines. The other was carefully saved the day it was minted and never entered circulation. One might be worth a few cents. The other could be worth hundreds. That difference is what keeps collectors searching. The Lincoln penny itself already had a special place in American history. Introduced in 1909 to honor President Abraham Lincoln, it became the first regular U.S. coin to feature a real person. Before that, American coins mostly displayed symbolic figures. Lincoln's portrait changed everything. By 1941, the design had already become familiar to millions of Americans. On the front was Lincoln's famous profile. On the back appeared two wheat stalks surrounding the words 1 cent. That is why collectors call these coins wheat pennies. Today, wheat pennies have a devoted fan base. Many collectors began their hobby by searching through old jars for these iconic coins. And among them, the 1941 issue remains one of the most recognized. But there is another reason people get excited. Errors. Coin errors can transform an ordinary coin into something extraordinary. Most 1941 pennies were struck exactly as intended. But a small number escaped the mint with mistakes. Those mistakes are now highly sought after. One of the most famous varieties involves double die characteristics. On certain coins, parts of the lettering or date appear slightly doubled because of the way the die was created. To the untrained eye, it may look like a trick of the light. To a collector, it could mean serious value. Other examples show off-center strikes, clipped planchets, die cracks, or unusual minting abnormalities. These aren't common, but when discovered, they can attract strong interest from buyers. Now imagine finding one by accident in a family coin collection. That possibility keeps treasure hunters searching through old boxes and inherited collections every day. But let's talk about value. A heavily circulated 1941 Lincoln penny with no mint mark might sell for only a few cents to $1 depending on condition. Not exactly life-changing. But then things start getting interesting. A well-preserved coin with strong detail and attractive surfaces can bring several dollars or even much more. Move into uncirculated grades where the coin shows little or no wear and values climb significantly. Some high-grade examples have sold for hundreds of dollars. And the finest known examples? Those are in a completely different league. Professional grading services examine coins under strict standards. Tiny differences in luster, strike quality, and preservation can dramatically affect value. A coin that looks perfect to most people might still fall short of the highest grades. But when a 1941 no-mint mark penny achieves an elite grade, collectors compete fiercely to own it. That competition can push prices into the thousands. Think about that for a second. A 1-cent coin, worth thousands of dollars. Not because it contains precious metal. Not because it is ancient, but because it survived in extraordinary condition while millions of others did not. That is what makes coin collecting so addictive. Every coin tells a survival story. The odds become even more fascinating when you consider how many 1941 pennies were spent, damaged, cleaned, lost, or melted over the decades. Finding one that still looks almost brand new is incredibly difficult. And collectors know it. Another factor driving demand is nostalgia. Many people remember grandparents saving wheat pennies in jars and coffee cans. Those memories create emotional connections that keep interest strong generation after generation. When collectors buy a 1941 penny, they are not just buying metal. They are buying a small piece of American history. Think about where that coin may have traveled. It could have purchased a newspaper during the early days of World War II. Could have passed through hundreds of hands. It might have sat forgotten in an attic for decades before being rediscovered. Every scratch and mark hints at a journey nobody can fully reconstruct. That mystery is part of the appeal. And sometimes the most valuable discoveries happen when people least expect them. Stories regularly appear about collectors searching old rolls of pennies and finding coins worth far more than face value. While most searches end with ordinary finds, the possibility of uncovering something special keeps the hunt alive. That is why experienced collectors always recommend checking dates carefully. Especially wheat pennies. Especially older Philadelphia issues. Especially coins that appear unusually sharp or unusual. Because one tiny detail can make all the difference. A rare error. An exceptional grade. A hidden variety. Any of those factors can transform an ordinary-looking cent into a prized collectible. So the next time you come across a 1941 Lincoln penny with no mint mark, don't dismiss it too quickly. Take a closer look. Study the date. Examine the lettering. Check the condition. Look for anything unusual. You might simply have a common wheat penny. Or you might be holding a coin that collectors would love to add to their collections. And that's the beauty of coin hunting. Every penny carries a question. Every old coin hides a possibility. And every collection could contain an unexpected treasure waiting to be discovered. So now I want to know something. Have you ever found an old wheat penny in your change? And if you discovered a 1941 no-mint mark Lincoln penny today, would you keep it, sell it, or start a collection around it? What if the penny hiding in your pocket right now is worth hundreds, or even thousands of dollars? It sounds impossible. After all, a penny is just 1 cent. Most people toss them into jars, leave them in cup holders, or forget about them entirely. But one particular coin from 1953 has been quietly capturing the attention of collectors for decades. And if you find the right one, you could be holding a surprisingly valuable piece of American history. The coin we're talking about is the 1953 D. Lincoln wheat penny. Back in 1953, America was changing fast. The Korean War was coming to an end. Television was becoming a household staple. Cars were getting bigger and the economy was booming. Meanwhile, millions of pennies were being produced every day to keep commerce moving across the country. At the Denver Mint, workers struck more than 700 million Lincoln wheat pennies that year. That's a huge number. At first glance, that might make the 1953 D seem common and unimportant. But as every treasure hunter knows, the real story is always hidden in the details. The small D mint mark below the date tells us this coin was produced in Denver. It may have left the mint looking ordinary, but time has a way of turning ordinary objects into collectible treasures. Most 1953 D pennies entered circulation immediately. They bounced from hand to hand. They bought candy, newspapers, and cups of coffee. They spent decades being used, dropped, scratched, and worn down. Because of that, Finding one today in exceptional condition is much harder than many people realize. And that's where things start getting interesting. A heavily worn 1953 D Lincoln wheat penny might only be worth a few cents to a few dollars. Not exactly life-changing money, but condition changes everything. Collectors are obsessed with quality. They search for coins with sharp details, original color, and minimal wear. The closer a coin is to the way it looked on the day it left the mint, the more desirable it becomes. A bright red 1953 D penny with strong mint luster can command surprisingly high prices. Some examples graded in top mint state conditions have sold for hundreds of dollars. And the finest known specimens have reached values that leave many people shocked. Imagine finding a penny worth more than a new smartphone. But condition isn't the only thing collectors look for. Some 1953 D pennies contain fascinating minting errors that can dramatically increase their value. These errors occurred during the manufacturing process when something went wrong at the mint. One of the most sought-after possibilities is a repunched mint mark. This happens when the mint mark was punched into the die more than once, leaving subtle traces visible under magnification. To most people, it looks like a normal penny. To collectors, it's a hidden treasure. Then there are die cracks, die chips, and other unusual varieties that create distinctive features on the coin's surface. These tiny mistakes transform an ordinary penny into something unique. And uniqueness drives demand. Think about it. Millions of people can own a normal coin, but only a small number can own a rare variety. That's where the competition begins. The Lincoln Wheat Penny series is one of the most collected coin series in American history. Generations of collectors have spent years filling albums with these coins. Some started as children and continued the hobby for decades. Because of that enormous collector base, demand remains strong even for dates that are not considered major rarities. The 1953 D benefits from this popularity. Every year, collectors search through old collections, inherited coin boxes, and forgotten jars hoping to find exceptional examples. And sometimes they do. There are stories of people discovering valuable wheat pennies in old dresser drawers, estate sales, and family collections that had been untouched for years. What looked like spare change turned out to be collectible coins worth far more than face value. That's one of the reasons coin collecting feels like a treasure hunt. You never know where the next discovery will happen. Another fascinating detail about the 1953 D penny is its composition. Unlike modern pennies that contain mostly zinc, these coins were struck primarily from copper. They have a distinctive appearance and weight that many collectors love. When you hold one, you're holding a small piece of American history. This coin has survived more than 70 years. It has witnessed generations of change. It has traveled through countless hands and countless transactions. Yet somehow, many still survive today. Of course, not every 1953 D penny is valuable. That's an important reality. Some are heavily worn and common. But the challenge is figuring out whether yours is ordinary or extraordinary. Collectors examine several factors. How sharp are the wheat stalks on the reverse? How much original red color remains? Are there any unusual markings or minting errors? Has the coin been professionally graded? Each answer can significantly impact value. Professional grading services evaluate coins and assign numerical grades based on condition. Even a small difference in grade can mean a dramatic difference in price. A coin graded near perfection can be worth many times more than a similar coin with minor flaws. That's why experienced collectors inspect every detail carefully. The difference between a common coin and a valuable coin may be almost invisible to the untrained eye. And that's what makes the 1953 D Lincoln Wheat penny so intriguing. It hides its secrets well. At first glance, it's just another old penny. Nothing flashy, nothing obvious. But underneath that simple appearance lies a world of history, rarity, collector demand, and hidden value. Thousands of people have probably handled one without realizing its potential. Maybe one passed through your hands years ago. Maybe one is sitting in a coin jar right now. Maybe one is tucked away in a collection waiting to be rediscovered. That's the magic of coin collecting. The next great find isn't always gold or silver. Sometimes it's a humble copper penny that everyone else overlooked. And the 1953 D. Lincoln wheat penny is a perfect example of that idea. A small coin, a big story, a piece of history that continues to fascinate collectors more than 7 decades after it was minted. So now I'm curious. Have you ever searched through your spare change and found an old wheat penny? And if you discovered a 1953 D. Lincoln penny tomorrow, would you keep it, sell it, or hold on to it as a piece of history? Let me know in the comments.